I don't go with the modern bikes. They're making them too close and tight, and a lot of them, the pedals touch the front wheel. We cater more for the old school who don't like all these changes. When we were riding, I had 5 speeds, and we wouldn't ride 5s, we only rode 4s. We thought they were too much out of alignment, the chain. So we had 4 on there and 2 on here, that was 8. But now they've gone berserk, they've got 7 on there and 3 on here. That's 21 gears. Well, you don't know which one you're in, you know.
Very hard, very windy.
Leaving Morecambe on the 7th stage of the Daily Express Tour of Britain race, it's Dave Bedwell wearing the yellow jersey, mark of leadership. Through the Lake District, it's 160 miles to Glasgow, and here they go through Kendal. Conditions are pretty bad, and there's a tough stretch ahead, so anything can happen as they head across Kendal Bridge with the Shap ahead.
It was cycling's golden age, the 30s and 40s, the age of the dedicated weekenders, amateurs on second-hand bikes. And these are the same young men, 40 years on. Some had been champions, others rode for fun. None of them had seen these newsreels of their exploits until the night they came together to celebrate 3 great names of British cycling. The names are all Taylor, 3 brothers from Stockton, all keen, successful riders who couldn't find bikes that suited them, so designed and manufactured one that did. There's Jack, the oldest and founder of the business. Norman, unmarried, still riding every weekend. And Ken, the youngest rider to finish the Brighton to Glasgow Marathon.
Now it's Blair, Taylor and Steele leading the breakaway gang, with Bedwell and the yellow jersey well out of sight. They're an hour ahead of schedule as they near Glasgow, with only 3 in it as far as the day's run prize goes. And there's only just time to chalk the line as Ian Steele beats Taylor by half a wheel, and a Scotsman wins the leg to Glasgow, the halfway mark.
I've met lads which we've never seen for 30 years. There were lads then, they're men now, 50 and 60. And it was like it was yesterday.
Most of us, when we started cycling by hosteling and just the love of the countryside. And actually racing came along at a later date in competition and that, you know. And when we did race, we took it serious. When you're on about the amount of time you got a holiday from work and that, I know when I first started, I had been picked to ride the World Championships for England, and I'd already had my week's holiday that year, and I went to my boss, and I says, "Can I have an extra week's holiday? I've been selected to ride for Great Britain and Germany in the World Championships." And this fella used to speak through his nose, he said, "Don't mean telling me, then you've already had your holidays." He says, more or less, he says, "If you go away," he says, "and say the World Championships are your job." Well, I was going into the forces within a fortnight or so. In any case, I says, "Oh, well," I says, it's the World Championships, you know." So I went and I got finished.
I think what it is nowadays, the equipment and the bikes they use are a lot better. Where once upon a time, you could never afford a complete bike with all the good gear on. You had to just get second-hand equipment and put on. So it took years before you really had a decent machine to ride on. Well, today, youngsters at 14 and 15 get a complete bike with everything on.
It's a most unlikely place to find some of the best bikes in the world. A faded factory in a scruffy back lane in Stockton. And you may not find it for much longer, because the Taylors are thinking of retiring, of selling up. In their workshop, they still have as many orders as they want, everyone put together in the old way, in a slow ritual of tubes and brazed joints. Every man to his job, clearly defined over the years. Norman in charge of frame building and with a philosophy about proper bicycles.
You don't have robots to make hand-built bikes. Used to have a scrappy old bike. Used to pull the brake on with a bit of string, you know, when I was at school. And I sort of found myself repairing all the other lads' bikes. They couldn't do them and I could. I used to take pedals to bits and pack all the ball bearings up with grease and readjust them. You know, I got pretty good at being able to do anything on a bike. Even at school, you know, between 12 and 14. So we quickly fell in the way of doing bikes. When we first set off, we used to build one frame a month. That was 12 in a year, and we thought that was good. Well, if I finish up doing one a month, well, that's a good retirement. That'll keep me handing. I've taught 30 lads to build frames over the 50 years, and out of 30 lads, the average is 1 in 10 turn out to be any good. There's only certain people what sort of fit in to do the particular job and get the feel of it. I don't think many cycle builders are surrounded by anything new. That they do everything the old-fashioned ways. The welding and brazing, it's an old-fashioned trade. And the way everything's done. Anybody learning could make 10 frames and there'd be something wrong with all 10. You know, you have to make quite a lot before you get good at it. I've made 8,300 up to date. That includes all types of frames. I don't think we'll make 10,000. We all slowing down a bit.
The tailors have been known to turn away orders. 2,000 for America might have overloaded a quiet system that makes 5 bikes a week. 5 bikes, mainly tandems, wheeled and finished by Ken Taylor, genuinely handmade. If you order a Taylor bike, you'll be asked to specify down to the smallest detail. Then the tailors will build or buy the very best parts in the world.
I order these different things from different firms, and because you don't need 1,000 a week, they won't do things for you. So I order the cycle rims with no holes in, and I drill them out to 48 holes to suit what I want in tandems, because they won't do it for me. And the customers want it, and they're a better job. In another 4 or 5 years, it'll be standard practice. Everybody will have 48-hole spokes in the tandems. They've been on the go now for a couple of years, and it takes these big firms a long time to catch up on what's going on in the marketplace. I get the hubs from California. There's a guy over there makes special hubs, and he does them 48 for me. And I get Maxicar from France. There's a gentleman over there, he makes hubs like we make bikes, and he does what I want. So we're okay. There's always someone, somewhere in the world, that'll do something for you. It's a matter of finding them.
Jack, the founder, is in charge of painting and administration and the sometimes tricky business of customer relations.
You know, always somebody wants something you haven't got. And this drawing's got to go back to the lad in America to get him to approve it before we make the job. It started off from a lot of measurements that I didn't think would work out. But funny enough, they've worked out perfectly, which is very unusual. Normally when you get an order like this, you draw it all out, and then you find that something doesn't join up. There's a 2-inch gap. You know, he's got the wrong angles or the wrong measurements, and you've got to compromise with it. But this is being drawn out before, and the funny thing is there's a whole page there in metric, centimetres and these queer things, and I've had to translate it back to English because I'm too old to work off metric. They should have sent me the drawing this is why we've had to find out what's the guy talking about, because we think all these people with these measurements are a lot of nuts, you know. There was a time when all these Americans were ordering bikes. I was walking around in a daze on a night with my dog. You know, I was dizzy with the work and the orders, and it was like being on a treadmill. You know, it never stops. It's all go all the time. It's just this last year or so things have eased off and got a bit easier. You know, you can knock off at 3 or 4 o'clock and look at the clock and think, well, I've done enough for today.
So who is it that's prepared to pay more than £500 for a bike or £2,000 for a tandem? Most of the machines are exported to America, Australia, most corners of Europe. Once, so the story goes, they sold a consignment to Russia and painted them red, white and blue. The reaction from Volgograd isn't recorded, but the response of most of their customers is that they got what they paid for, the best.
We like the expertise, the craftsmanship, the time aspect that's put into something like this. We know that Norman has spent a lot of time, and it's all done by hand, you know. We like the hand-built approach. It's a magical sort of place to us. I mean, we've spent days and days here, you know. We don't want to go away when we get here. It's such a wonderful place to us. But you've got to be, again, an enthusiast to sort of appreciate that, you know.
Anyway, this is Jack.
Yes.
This is
Hello.
Kay. And
Kay.
this is, Wolf. And this is Wolf.
Hi, what's your second name then?
Specialist bikes attract a specialist type of customer too. They've been known to turn up in Stockton from America or Germany just to place their order. It's a pilgrimage. They watch the master work, even if they don't actually understand what he's doing.
This is a little mechanical wheel. This is a cyclo wheel. It's a bit of a job that's died out, hand lining.
Yes, I know.
And racing lads don't go in for it, you know.
So straight. You've done it.
We had a guy from Germany, and he says, will you talk while you're doing it? I said, no. I said, it's a bit of a concentrated effort. I said, I'll talk when I've finished it. Now we do one side of the tandem, and then it dries. And you keep running it out to keep the wheel. Have you seen this operation before?
No, never.
No, it's funny, most people are...
you make it look so easy though. I'm sure I could make a real mess of it.
It's dead easy. I couldn't do it for a lot of years, and we had a man, Mr. Dixon. He was 71.
Yeah?
And he did it all with a brush.
Good grief.
And when he died, I was in a panic. I had to force myself to do it. He couldn't use the wheel, and I couldn't use his brush.
Incredible, isn't it?
It puts a bit of life into the frame, doesn't it?
I tell you what, I don't think I could do anything like that.
Oh,
It would be a
could.
real
Yes,
mess, wouldn't
yes,
it? If I
of
had to go.
If it wasn't for me glasses, you know, I wouldn't be able to see this. I've had 3 pairs of glasses in about the last, 20 years. And we're all getting to the point where we can't see what we're doing, you know, but you've done it that long, you sort of know.
Yeah.
There's not many mass-produced bikes got this lining on. When we started making these and going to Earl's Court in the 1950s, every bike had a different style of lining on. And all the different firms had their own peculiar styles. And then it died out. So I can only presume that the people who did it have either died or retired. And probably I'm the only one left doing it.
The wheel is the creation of modern civilization, isn't it? Everything rolls on wheels. It's supposed to be one of the greatest engineering feats there is, especially a thing like a bicycle wheel. It's so light and fragile, and engineering-wise, it's a great achievement. And everybody just takes it for granted, don't they? A thing like a bicycle wheel. They don't realise what a marvellous thing it is. Wheels in general. I mean, when you think of the loads what go on this wheel, people with tents and sleeping bags, panniers packed up, the weight of the people who are riding it, the mountain terrain that they cross over, the strain it gets under going downhill. It's fantastic. I've gone down mountains and I've had to pour water on there to cool it off. It got that hot. It's funny when these Americans come, you know. They take photographs of me building wheels and even get down there laid on the floor, take photographs through the hub.
The Taylors are an odd treble, bound together by a love of quality and detail, and above all, cycling itself. They started their own event, the Cleveland Road Race, and even with middle-aged legs, they couldn't resist taking part themselves.
The bunch came in, there was about a dozen riders in the bunch, and there was a policeman on point duty, and he turned round to wave the riders through, and in his surprise of seeing all these bike riders come towards him, he turned round and he had his arms up in the wrong direction, and he sent all the riders in the wrong way. And Ken and I knew the way, and we went through, and we were first and second. When we shouted to all the lads, they swung round. But in those few seconds, Norman had shot through and he was into the finishing straight. That's one of our favourite pictures. What we like about that is the way everybody's looking at the race. Now, as the years went by and people got other attractions and other interests, hardly anybody took any notice of the race. They were all on the beach or looking at the new car or something. But that was 1945, and it was almost the austere years. And when this race come on, they called it the Victory Cycling Marathon. Everybody from Brighton right up to Glasgow followed the route like that. When we passed through Wolverhampton, there was guys shouting out off the backs of lorries, "Come on, Taylor, take your turn at the front." We thought, out of the nose down here. You know, take your turn in the front. And you were doing what Barry Hoban was saying, trying to get in slipstream out the wind.
Hanging on the back.
That's when I got dropped off the main group, and the whole bunch had split up going over Carter Bar. But I think we were in about the first half dozen, you know. All the Frenchmen had shot away from us, and we were struggling over singly. That motor car dates the picture. That was the Ford Popular. They don't carry tyres now. They think there's a motor car yard behind with a spare bike on.
That one was over in Ireland, and these are the two Newcastle lads we used to race with quite regular. Stan Blair and Viv Brown. They were good riders.
We were on a circuit race. It went round this Navan about 3 times. But before the race started, somebody got a lorry and took us all up from Dublin. And it took all day to get there because they kept popping into places to say how do to different friends that they knew, and they all got the Guinness out. So by the time we were there, we were about sozzled. That was one of the best pictures we had taken, with the names on the jerseys. This was taken at Bignell's Corner of North London. We used to ride through London in like a procession to get through the traffic, and then they would stop at Bignell's Corner and we all had a meal, and then the race started properly. You know, there might be 50 or 100 guys in some of these races, and there was maybe a dozen characters who acted the goat, or who you could remember, or who you rode with more than the others, or they beat you or you beat them. And then the whole mass of the others have gone into oblivion.
I'm amazed that people recognise me with my glasses on and everything. You know, people who haven't seen me for 40 years recognise me.
No hair, can they?
You know, you're wearing glasses. And, you know, you think you're completely different, but people seem to know you.
I saw Norman Taylor win the Cleveland Road Race, the first one. I'd just been started off cycling by Norman Jeffcoat over there. And we were at the top of Claybank, and this great bunch of cyclists came up. We never seen anything like it before. And that was it. We were hooked on cycle racing after that.
My first recollections of Jack Taylor, the name, was when I bought my first decent bike, you know, after I got rid of this bitty travelling late. I went to Blade and there was a sale on a Jack Percy's. He was president of our cycling club, the Tyne Velo. He had a big moustache, and at the time I had an impediment in my speech. I couldn't speak till I was 12, you know, or 14. I used to stutter a lot, and if I went to a shop, I had to practice at the shop window what I was going to ask outside the shop. And if there was anybody in the shop, I couldn't go in the shop if there was anybody in and just ask a question. So what happens is, this sale was on. I thought, I'm going to try and get a Jack Taylor bike, because I'd heard that much about it. Most of our club lads were riding them. Went down to Bladen Square, stood at the window, and I practiced here. He didn't have any Jack Taylors, he only had Hobbs of Barbican. Well, that was an awkward word, an H, when you stutter. And I stood at the pity when I was going, ho, ho, and this went on for a while. And in the end, I got my courage up. I got a, how much are your Hobbs of Barbican? So away into the shop, I know what to say. I'd practice, how much are your Hobbs of Barbican? I thought I can manage that without stuttering. I just gets to the counter, and without me knowing, Jack Percy come up like this, and he says, can I help you? I didn't know he had a pretty impediment, and I just broke up then, and I says, and he come out, and his assistant, and he threw me into Bladen Square, and I ended up upside down in Bladen Square, and that's my first recollection of Jack Taylor, upside down in Bladen Square.
A bloke called De Rosa wrote a book on frame building, and Taylor's came out second in the world on tandem manufacture. And when you think about it, you know, second in the world is pretty hot stuff from three canny lads from Stockton, you know, who have no great pretension to business.
And of course Norman used to come out with this, still did, with a hard rider section. Never known a bloke with so much courage. He once got frostbite on one run in the winter time, riding to Pickering by a blue bank, and we all turned back and ended up in a pub boozing. Norman rode all the way to Pickering and ended up with frostbite.
They've never changed, have they?
Oh no,
I mean, commercially they've missed the boat in modern day terms, but are they right and we're wrong chasing the golden pot? You know, they've got a contented life, and I reckon, you know, that they've really made it.
I don't like progress. I think as you get older, you find it isn't progress, it's only change, and it isn't change always for the better. When you're young, you accept all the new ideas and new designs and that, and you go along with it. And as you get older, you find they don't stand up. You're very sceptical about progress. Every time they put the rates up, we think, gosh, we don't fit into the modern age at all. You know, we're like a hangover from a bygone age, like the steam engines and all these other things that they've cut up.